Japan has a reputation for being a country that saves a lot of money. So today, I'm going to walk you through how much money you should save by every decade and compare them to the reality of everyday Japanese and residents of Japan. And we'll have financial goals for every decade. I'll also share with you the average net worth for someone your age based on the data that we have from the Statistics Handbook of Japan and the Household Survey. I'll make sure you have chapter markers so you can go directly to the decade that you want. Interested? So let's get started with people in their 20s. In your 20s, you likely graduated school. You're starting your work life with entry-level salary. You still have a lot of student debt, probably, and therefore your savings and your net worth aren't going to be the highest point in your life. Actually, it probably be at one of the lowest it will ever be. As you can see, the average net worth is minus 6 million yen for someone in their 20s. And that's really low because that's negative. That being said, Fidelity and others are recommended a target number for savings that you should have by your end of your 20s, meaning when you reach 30. And that target number is 1 time your salary, already saved for retirement. At the age of 29 or 30, you're making the national average of 6.3 million yen a year for your target group. That means that you should have at least 6.3 million yen saved on all your accounts. And that includes your retirement account, like a DC on iDeCo, which is the local equivalent of 401k, on your NISA, which is the equivalent of your IRA or Roth IRA, and all of your savings accounts. However, if we look at the average savings in Japan at this age group, it is only 4.7 million yen. So many people are behind. So if you manage to be at 1x your annual salary, you will already be way advanced compared to the rest of your age group. In terms of financial goal you should aim for, there are 4 main goals. Number 1 is no consumer debt. And this is one that I already mentioned before in other videos. But if you have any high interest debt, like a credit card debt, consumer debt, you want to kill this off immediately. And the reason for that are really simple. It slows you down in your wealth building journey. Number 2 is understanding your spending. So knowing how much money is coming in and how much money is going out every given month. That's a great habit to have, and you're going to be ahead of most people in their 20s. Number 3 is to have a plan to make more income eventually, especially when you reach your 30s or your 40s. You really need to find your way. Some people find their ways immediately. That's great. That wasn't my case. So you need to find what makes sense for you, where you're really good, where you have good skills, where you have passion, and you go toward that. So when you arrive in your 30s and your 40s, you have developed the skills, you have developed the passion, and you can command a higher salary. Number 4, and the last goal in your 20s, is to start investing. Good investing starts with good, solid financial foundation, like watching this video. So you make sure that at least you have, for starters, an emergency fund that's stocked with 3 to 6 months of living expenses, and probably start looking at investing through tax advantageous account like your CD or your iDeCo that I just mentioned. And maybe if you have a bit more money, your NISA. There's more on that in this video if you want to dig deeper. In your 30s, you're likely accelerating when it comes to your career. You might be getting married soon. Actually, the average age of marriage in Japan is 31 for men and 29.7 for women, so it's right there. You may be starting a family. If that's the case, congratulations. But it also means that you have a lot of big expenses coming up. The average net worth of someone in their 30s is actually minus 10 million yen. It's getting worse. And despite the fact that the average house buyer in Japan is in her or his 40s, I suspect many people are actually already buying houses in their 30s, and therefore it might explain the increase in debt. And 42% of you here are between 25 and 34. And if this happens to be your situation, please let me know in the comments below. And because the goal of today's video is to show you how most people are doing in Japan, and if you aren't there yet financially, I'm so glad you found this video. I'm going to show you a couple of steps in order to get you there in this video, but also in future video on this channel. So don't hesitate to like, but more importantly, subscribe, like Jay Carter 9322 did, and he was subscriber number 1000 in this channel. Kudos. Thank you very much to you. So let's continue back to the 30s. The amount you should have saved by the end of your 30s is going to be 3x your salary. Now, at According to the Bureau of Statistics, the average annual income of someone in their 40s in Japan is 8 million yen. That means by the age of 40, you should have 3 times that saved, but the average actual savings at 30 is actually 8.4 million. So you can see that a lot of people are already behind. So if you manage to do that, you're gonna be so much ahead. There are a couple of goals that you should help hitting in your 30s. And number one is that you should systematically be saving and investing 15 to 20% of your gross annual income. Let's say you could only save 10% of a 6.9 million yen salary. So that's 690,000 yen a year or 57.5 thousand yen a month into the S&P 500 via a mutual fund that's available on your NISA or your DC or iDeCo accounts. If you get the average return of the S&P 500 at 8%, by the time you reach 65, you will end up with a balance of 80 million yen. Now, the average saving for someone in their 60s in Japan is 20 million yen. So you're gonna be well over that average by the time you're in your 60s. Number two is to be completely out of debt, excluding your mortgage, of course, by the time you're in your 40s. And number three, in your 30s, since you're going to be making more money, you probably also have more obligation as well. But you want to avoid spending too much via what's called lifestyle inflation. It means that you should really spend reasonably. Keep the same level of spending. Have a budget, live below your means. And if you do that, you will be really fine. So the average net worth for someone in their 40s is still low at minus 2.1 million yen. Still crippled by too much debt, but is getting way better. Fideli recommends that in your 40s, so before you hit the age of 50, you should have at least 6 times your salary saved for retirement. So the average salary at 40 is 8 million yen. So 6 times that is 36 million yen. Now, when you're in your 40s, there are 3 main goals you should look at. Number one is you should have your retirement number in mind. You should be able to figure out how much money you're gonna need to live off when you're retirement. A good rule of thumb is that you want to try to live off 3 to 4% of your invested assets every single year in retirement. You probably heard about that 3 or 4% rule. That's exactly what it is. Let's use the figure that pops out all the time, which is $1 million invested for retirement. Now, let's translate it into the Japanese context. If we say $1 million at today's rate, it's going to be 150 million yen. 4% of that year, it's about 6 million yen a year. Knowing that the recommended monthly amount for a couple to live in retirement is a tiny 282,000 yen a month or 3.3 million yen a year, you should be at that time almost doubling that. So it would be a great position to be in. Now, we have to acknowledge that your return might be a little bit lower, so the actual number might vary a little bit. You might need more than 150 million, but you get the overall idea. Number two in your 40s is to have all of your big expenses accounted for. So it means paying off your house, saving for college for your kids. You should know exactly how much money those expenses are, and you should have a plan and a priority to be able to match those expenses. Number three, in your 40s at this point, is you should have all your financial bases covered. By that I mean, if you're in the US, your credit score should be really good. It's important in Japan as well. You should have an estate plan in mind as well if you think you need it. You should have no debt, except maybe your mortgage, but a plan to pay this mortgage, right? Very soon. Let's talk about people in their 50s, which is my age group. So if you're in your 50s, the average net worth really gets better. Now we have positive 9.3 million yen. Most people have already completely paid off their mortgage, which remember, mortgage is 90% of the household debt in Japan. Also, there's another recommendation, right, in terms of how much you should save for retirement in your 50s. In your 50s, it's recommended to be 8 times your salary saved by the time you're in 60s. It's going to be somewhat a reasonable number. But if we look at the average salaries in the 50s, it is 8.8 million. So that would be 70.4 million yen. Now, there are 3 main goals to accomplish when you arrive in your 50s. Number one is finishing paying your mortgage. Your 30-year mortgage is coming up soon, especially if you bought your house in your 20s or your early 30s. You have to really prioritize paying off that debt and living debt-free. Number two is diversifying your investment. Maybe by adding up some real estate if you haven't had. investing in some businesses so you create new income streams. And for your investment, right, stock market investment, you start shifting your portfolio towards something that's more conservative assets, like bonds, for example, and less risky than other assets like stocks that tend to vary a lot. You don't want big drawdown when you're at that age. Number 3, you have to know how much you want to spend in retirement every single year. There's a good rule that's called the 80% rule. That's a very good guideline. And it says that once you're in retirement, you should aim at spending no more than 80% of your current annual salary. So let's say if your salary was 8.8 million yen per year, which is the average of people in their 50s, you want to spend a maximum of 7 million yen every year in retirement. And there's actually here a table from Fidelity that gives you a suggestion based on your own situation. And then now you see that the math does not equal with the calculation we did with the 4% rules a few minutes ago. So that's why you really need to calculate how much money you need to spend in retirement to have a comfortable, and see how much saving you have, how much pension we may have, and do a reality check and make the adjustments to make sure that you hit the number you need in your retirement. Because once you retire, it's too late. We've made it to the final bracket, which is the age of the 60s. The average net worth of someone in their 60s is 20 million yen. It jumps right up because most people, of course, they've paid out their house completely. So in their 60s, all the money comes and increases basically the net worth. By the retirement age, you should aim to have at least 10 times your salary saved for retirement. So as we said, every decade it becomes more and more money you should have saved. So the average income of somebody in Japan at the age of 60 is roughly 6.6 million yen. So that means you want to have 10x that saved for your retirement by the time you're 67 or whenever it is that you retire. And you'll notice that the income drops a lot compared to the previous decade in the 50s. The main reason for that is that most people retire in their early 60s or mid 60s in Japan. So by the time they are in the second half of the 60s, they start living off their pension or their savings. So they're drawing down, they're skewing actually the averages down. So the goals for the 60s are very simple. The number 1 is to have your house paid off. This should make a lot of sense for everyone. If you still have a mortgage, that may not be the best financial place to be. You should really be focusing on retirement and looking ahead instead of looking backward to what you bought many years ago. The second one is that if you have any dependent, anybody that's relying on you, then you should probably have an estate plan or a will. And the major thing you should be doing is having a living will, as well as a healthcare power of attorney. What it means, and the equivalent in Japan, what it means at minimum, you want to have those documents ready so that you can state your preference in case something were to happen to you and that those people that are relying on you are taken care of. You can designate a legal guardian for minor children or someone that's dependent on you so that you know that someone that you trust can take care of that special someone for you. And number 3 is that you should have your retirement completely under control. No more guessing of how much money you're gonna need for your retirement, how much money is gonna come out. You should know exactly how much money you need every month, every year, as you're getting there very soon. And you should have a very solid understanding of your finances and how much money is gonna come from your saving, pensions, investment, you name it. And that's the end of our list. Let me know in the comments down below how much you have saved and your age. If you feel like sharing. If you enjoyed this video or learned something, please consider liking it and subscribing if you haven't done it already. And if you're interested in learning more about personal finance and Japan, please check these videos when you have time. Thank you again for watching, and until next time, goodbye.